Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much.
Time as you need.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Such an honor to be here. Such an honor to be with you tonight. You know, as I heard just Julie and all the other speakers that just shared for a few minutes, it really seemed like there was an overreaching, theme tonight. And it's something that I feel a lot of, and I identify with it in many ways. But there's so much about these three words here at the top of this banner, the first three words of our Constitution, that I think we've lost the power and the meaning of in our country. We the people. It's the unseen people. It's not the most popular people. It's not the wealthiest people. We the people was never meant to be about the people with the most influence, or those that lived in the biggest cities, or those that lived in the biggest houses, or had the greatest pieces of land or property. We the people was always about the person that was unseen. And this was a reminder, I think, to us that Constitution was about the government serving we the people, and not we the people serving the government. And we are in a fight. We're in a fight, not just here in Iowa, not just here in this county or neighboring counties, and not just me in this campaign. We're in a fight for we the people, for our nation, and also I would call it as a burning, shining lamp and example to the other nations, because there's a lot of other free nations out there that have unseen people as well that are being hurt all over the nation and all over the world. There's a lot of we the people in Israel right now that are hurting, that need our thoughts and prayers, and I'm sure you would stand with me in agreeing with that. There's a lot of we the people all over that are being terrorized across this world by regimes that are actually looking to destroy the very principles that we stand for and our nation itself. And it's time that we the people rise up. As I began this journey, I thought I would take a few minutes tonight and tell you a little bit about myself and about this burning mission that's in my heart. Because everywhere I go, a lot of people ask me two questions usually. One, Ryan, who are you? And then number two, why are you running? Why are you running? So this is a message that came to me a few years ago, that our country's in trouble, that we were created, I believe this, by God to be a burning, shining lamp for all of our citizens to enjoy these freedoms, which are in our Constitution, but written here, where we can enjoy as citizens a nation that's foundation is really built on protecting liberty. We're the only nation like it. In our Constitution, we are protecting freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of commerce and trade, freedom to assemble, to gather, to worship. And one by one, we are seeing these freedoms being jeopardized. And I would say the brightness of that lamp being darkened more every single day. And this is what came to me. It's time to brighten that lamp of freedom once again, and the time is now. The Republican Party, further, I think was impressed in my heart, is that party of freedom. Of the other parties, there's some people that do good things, and I know they love our country, but we embrace these freedoms really dear. But our party's in trouble. Our party as a whole has lost this dear message. We've compromised the truth in so many ways. We've lost our own message of what we stand for. Because the borrower is a slave to the lender. We've seen the Republican Party get just as much in debt as the Democratic Party in the last 30, 40 years. And we ourselves have lost our who and our why. Who are we and what do we stand for and why are we here as a nation? We've lost that in the Republican Party. We've lost a message, I think, also that we care. Our party is not known to care for the most hurting. Our party is not known to care for some of the unseen. And I think we're being wakened up to what do we really stand for? And who are we really? Because we've got the best message in the world, but we haven't had the best messengers, I think, carry out this love that is so prevalent in individuals in the Republican Party. Because I know of no other group of people that are more charitable or loving than my fellow Republicans as individuals, giving to the poor, giving to inner cities, giving to needs and charities and churches. But as a party, we're not real good messengers. And so we have got a PR problem, and we've got a connection problem. We've got issues. We're compromised. as we're standing here, as I told Robert earlier a little bit about our how I got introduced to this issue of the CO2 pipeline. My first introduction to it was from a gentleman from one of the ethanol plants. I'm taking a tour. They're telling me all about it, and he tells me the progress. And I mean, I'm convinced in 20 minutes it's the greatest thing in the world. And I'm like, yes, progress is great. I'm for progress. And then I do this thing called visiting 99 counties. And I get to about 40 or 50 of them, and I find myself being asked this question at 50 counties in a row by at least one person. Ryan, what do you think of the CO2 pipeline? And as I've done my polling and research, my first 50 counties, it was a 50-0 of people that were not in favor of the pipeline. Then I got real concerned that maybe the information I first received wasn't accurate, maybe it wasn't whole, and I began to inquire further. And I'm telling you, there's a couple reasons I stand. I don't have to repeat all the reasons or preach to the choir, but I just want to say we got this daunting thing called the Constitution that is very inconvenient sometimes. And we better stand for that, and we the people, the unseen people of the world, better stand up whether it goes through our property or not. We better stand for the property rights of individuals. Otherwise, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, we'll be giving up freedoms that we had no idea because of the precedents of today. And that's why I'm standing with you in this. Little by little they take. Little by little they nip at us with, oh, you need to pay for this, or you need to pay for this because this will help. Meanwhile, we can get compromised, and if we're not careful, we'll lose our freedom and lose our way, and that's the status. So the question is not just in the pipeline, but it parlays to everything. The $33 trillion in debt we're now. It parlays to healthcare monopolies that are so prevalent now. It parlays to wars and battles, sometimes endless ones, sometimes fights we should be in, sometimes we shouldn't. Do we know? Compromises. Is there greed out there because of the military-industrial complex that's persuading people? Or is there problems with monopolies in healthcare because of the medical-industrial complex, which is 4 times bigger, by the way? There is compromises that we get accustomed to. We get accustomed to, I say this, I did young adult ministry for 17 years before we started our church 10 years ago. We get accustomed to lies as adults. We're used to it. We're so used to it, we put up with it. We're okay with a little bit of it because, well, we excuse things. We turn a blind eye. Well, look at all the good things they did. But I'm telling you, it's a little bit of the foxes that spoil the vine. And young people today, the reason we've lost 70% of young people to the other party, one reason is because if we are not authentic with them, if we don't tell them the truth, and we don't show care for some of the most hurting in society, we'll never win their heart. They will not vote Republican. I've been to town hall after town hall with college students and young people, and we have to seize this moment to grab the next generation. And I'm in this race when asked the why. I've got 5 kids, 13 to 23. If we don't win something now and change something now with our budget, the debt crisis, healthcare, the failing banks, the tragedy that's about to come to our nation, if we don't fix it, the next generation will be lost. So we've got a moment. What's the window? I don't know. But I do know this. I felt in my heart that now is the time. And the reason I'm running in this race is because I am a CEO of an investment bank. I see things economically. I've been in business really most of my life. To tell you a quick story about my life, I got out of college at the University of Texas in 1990, went to business, Procter & Gamble, soon after Boston Scientific. I gave my life to the Lord in 1992, a couple years afterwards. And I went on a mission trip in 1995 to Guatemala, and for the first time I saw people, unseen people, in shanty villages, which if you don't know what those are, little villages about half the size or a quarter the size of this little wood floor, boxes, thousands of people overnight in Guatemala putting up homes. I went to landfills where I saw people live permanently. Kids never leave landfills. And as I was there for a week, the Lord spoke to me and he said, will you pastor my people? And I was a business guy. I was all about wanting to help pay for somebody else to go pastor those people. And I said, yes, Lord. And I knew then that I was in the call for whatever you wanted. And I I pursued that. I left that career job. I took another job that didn't own my soul, and I pursued ministry. And my wife and I got married in January of 1999. We both, a few months later, came on staff at our church, and we did young adult ministry in Atlanta, Georgia. We did inner city ministry in Section 8 housing every week. We took mission trips. I was living the dream of my life until January 15th, 2001. Oddly enough, since you mentioned it, Julie, the caucus night, 23 years back, my brother was killed by a drunk driver. He was running a business with my dad, and I never thought I'd do business again. Once you feel like you're in your calling, you don't have to wear a suit. You're like, hey, I'm done with that suit. But my brother was killed in a tragedy, and we prayed and felt like God said to come back and do business, and that we would pastor a church again. And so I've been on this mission of business and church, and our business has grown. We have about 400 employees in all of our companies, about 16 offices across the nation and in Canada, and we pastor a church. But this message came to my heart a few years back that we need a revival in America. We need an economic revival, and we need a spiritual revival. And the time for that revival is not 2 years from now, 4 years from now, or 8 years from now. There's a time, and the time is right now. That's what we have to do. Joseph in the Bible saw something, and he interpreted a dream and vision, and he began to give accurate interpretation that there was a period of time because something was coming. I see something coming that we're not ready for. I don't know what it is, and I don't know when it is, but I know this: we are going to be $50 trillion in debt in about 8 years. We're going to spend $1 trillion in interest payments in the next 12 months. We don't have a dime in the bank in the country. We are going to be likely at that time, 15% of our annual budget will be interest payments. We already spend this year, we'll spend about as much on interest payments as our military. So as we borrow every dollar we spend, I'm sure not in favor of borrowing money for CO2 phantom money and let our kids pay for that on their third credit card. I'm not in favor of wars going on forever either because of the same reason. But I am in favor of us standing for freedom and standing for what matters. And what matters right now is that we get our budget in line. I'm an economist. We have to understand the fragile nature of our country. We have the ability to print money here. I wish I had one of those machines. Does anybody wish they had one of those machines just in your garage? Be nice. I called them and asked them. They said no. But the ability to do that is hurt our country so bad. Because now we've convinced a whole generation of legislators who don't think debt matters. We've had presidents, other people act like debt doesn't matter, and now we're finding out debt matters. We are paying for it now, and we're paying for it with our children's future. And so here we are. How do we balance this? We met together with some economists. We haven't had a Republican presidential candidate mention these words, we need to balance the budget, since Ronald Reagan. So we have to admit we own it. So what are we going to do? I have looked at this 10 ways from Sunday. You know what it's going to call? It's going to call me communicating to America through a camera, doing what President Trump did with Twitter, with Facebook, YouTube, every media, and say, listen, we're in trouble, but we can make some changes, and they're not too austere, but we better move, and we better move now. If we wait 8 years and decide another $15 trillion in debt won't matter, we're fooling ourselves. So what we have to do is, I believe this, we have to solve the healthcare crisis financially. That's 35-40% of our overall budget. Medicare, Medicaid, the Obamacare subsidies, all these subsidies go out the door. So 35% of our budget is this big area that has automatic risers in it every year. I've looked at this with doctors and economists, and here's what we have found. There are monopolies that need to be broken in insurance exchanges, healthcare providers, and big pharma, and I'm ready to do it. This is what I know about monopolies, and you know this as well. If you have a monopoly, love to say I'd love to have one, nobody ever gave one up on their own. Health insurance exchanges, you got two major providers that control over 80% of the market right here in Iowa. I have over 6,000 competitors in the mergers and acquisition business right here in the United States. We need to get rid of that old law that doesn't allow insurance companies to compete across state lines. We need to bring price visibility to every hospital and doctor's office in America. There are three prices. There is a listed price, a negotiated price, and this thing called a cash price. And if you ask for cash, you'll get it for about 40 to 50 cents on the dollar. And everybody with private insurance is subsidizing everybody else, not just with Medicare and Medicaid and Obamacare, but now, as I'm understanding, with pharmaceutical drugs, the world. We are subsidizing the world, and it's time to stop. Time to stop. We have a 7-year economic plan. I've got policy on our website on how to balance the budget in 7 years. It starts with reforming healthcare. I will not let it stand. We have to change it. There's so many great things to change in it, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to put the patient back in charge. We're going to have them have relationships with doctors again. When I worked for Boston Scientific 30 years ago, we used to sell to doctors. Now 75% of the doctors are owned by hospitals today. No longer are they patient care providers. They're called revenue generators, and they provide services many times that we don't need. I hope I'm not offending any doctors here, but at the end of the day, we have to let patients be back in charge of the process and have an incentive to do this one thing: shop again. It's the only thing we purchase as Americans, and we don't ask this one question when we go to the doctor: how much does it cost for me to be here? So we go through this whole period of time, and then we find out 90 days later, oh wow, that was $10,000 or $20,000. One of my friends, one of my execs, son and his daughter-in-law are having a baby, and they had a $12,000 deductible plan, and that's what it cost to have the baby. They were 1 year married. How many of you guys had $12,000 in cash your first year of marriage? I didn't, you know. So they go and they say, we don't have $12,000. What do we do? And the hospital came back to him that hour and said, what if you paid cash? Could you pay $5,000? It went from $5,000 to $12,000 in a few hours, based on cash price. You tell me what tractor you can buy for $5,000 if you pay cash versus $12,000. You can't buy a car that way, nothing that way, but we've allowed it to happen in healthcare, and it's time to stop. And when we do, we'll balance the budget. We'll balance the budget. This thing that we're in our country, this unseen thing, if I can speak to this for a second. I'm a grassroots candidate. I'm not a billionaire. I'm blessed. I'm primarily self-funded. We have over 70,000 donors. I think we're probably at 70,000 next week or two. We've got well over 60. We've met the qualifications on that element for the debates, and we have at every debate. We were 5 people short in a poll to New Hampshire and about 4 or 5 in one national poll to be at the first debate. I've been fighting this battle, I would say this, with the RNC and with the RNC of Iowa as well, to allow not just to see, I would say this Iowa First thought be great, which it is and should be better. My interest is not just seeing Iowa first. My interest is keeping Iowa relevant. Raising thresholds, which they've never done before. I would have been in debates at every other, and I'm not whining, by the way, or here to whine. I'm here to tell you there's something moving. They're trying to select a field of candidates before this race got started. And you know what I'm doing? I'm going to every single county shouting. You know what we're doing? We're going up the polls along the way. We're the only ones that weren't at the debates at all. But we doubled our polling this last poll in Iowa, and we're 6th right now in Iowa. And we're going to keep shouting this message that we better get right back to God. We better get right back to each other. We better quit the division in our country. We better balance the budget. We better end the monopolies in healthcare. We better protect our freedoms and landowners' rights, and we better get the government out of our life, or we'll lose our freedoms forever. We've got to fix it. So we are here, and I've been to 20 counties, I think, this week. I think I hit our 84th county today. We've been going all around, meeting people all around, and it's not what it used to be. I went to 30 businesses today, knocking on doors, saying hi, and they're like, "You're the only candidate we've seen." That's good, but that's bad. It shouldn't be that way. It should have been the stories I've heard of old. They're used to everybody. And so what's happened when they put artificial parameters in there, what they're saying is this: if you're not a billionaire, you're not a lifelong politician, no need to apply. And what I'm saying is, I feel called. I'm not in it to whine. I'm telling you, I feel called. God gave me a vision about it, several visions many years ago, and they kept coming. And it's to share this message with America. And it's about coming back to who we are, remembering we the people. getting our country back financially, getting wisdom back in the marketplace, getting wisdom back in our government. You know, the Bible says in the book of Daniel that Daniel and his 3 friends, the governor, the king, found that they had 10 times the wisdom of other leaders. And I believe this, in the next decades to come, God's going to be raising up statesmen and women that have godly wisdom to solve some of our biggest crises that we have. Not only in the international wars and battles that we're facing, but also domestically. And I really believe this, when we're strong domestically, we'll lead well internationally. We'll be strong again. This whole message that I'm sharing, I've got a lot of thoughts to it. We have to secure the border. We have to protect our freedoms. We have to revive our country economically. We have to get back to being Republicans again. We have to end the division in our country. We have to remember what Abraham Lincoln said. You know, paraphrased, we'll never be destroyed from the outside. If we ever are destroyed, it'll be because we destroyed ourselves. We would be its author and finisher of that. And when I see the division that's in our country today, I believe this with all my heart. It's time for us to end the division. For us to rise above the rhetoric, to see the good in everybody in our country, knowing that many of them and all of them, we have to believe in good in our country, but we've got to convince and persuade without vilifying. I know there's corruption. I know there's battles that former President Trump has faced it's iniquity, and I know that. But I'm looking at a day right now and going, wow, if we don't see into the future and unite our country and be responsible financially, the next generation will be hurt. And I believe this with all my heart. If we don't fix this budget, we will be known. I'm 55. We'll be known as the generation that prospered the most but sacrificed the least. We'll be known because we've had more wealth come in our generation than the previous 2 combined. And here, what are we going to do? Pass off $50-60 trillion in debt? Say, sorry, I couldn't do it. I'm going to the lake. I'm not going to do that. I'm standing for the next generation, just like you were and you were and you were. We've got grandkids here ready to fight for them, and that's why I'm in this race. We have on here The Way to Freedom, A Time to Believe. When I first started this race, this is the question I had more than anything. Ryan, do you believe we can change? Do you believe we can really come through this? Do you think our country can unify? Do you think we can balance the budget? Do you think we can change? And I just said, yeah, I believe we can. And when I was about 30 days into this, we were on a pizza tour, a pizza ranch tour, and we got stuck in the mud one day, going to Shelby County. Y'all been praying for rain. And we're in this little rental car, and Lord behold, we got on a gravel road because it was a shortcut, and it was fine. And then it turned into a dirt road, and then we got on the other side, and it rained on the other side of the hill. We fishtailed it for a while, then we gassed it. We could not get up the next hill. We slid back down in the ditch, and I'm speaking with Governor Reynolds that night, 4 hours later. If there was a tow truck right there, they wouldn't be able to get us out. I was this much in mud, wearing a suit like I'm wearing now. And I was like, dear God, what's going to happen, you know? And one of my friends walked up the hill because it was as far as the eye could see, corn everywhere. Nothing but corn in all directions. And he walked up this hill, and on the other side of this hill, this lady with a white pickup stopped and said, can I help you? And her name was Faith. Faith had a friend with a tractor, came and pulled us out. We were 45 minutes late to the pizza ranch, but this is what I love about Iowans. All 12 people stayed. Who does that? Who does that? I'm like, that's when I fell in love with Iowa. I was like, you guys are amazing. If it was Dallas, they'd have been gone. But anyway, so what am I saying? We're stuck. We need faith to get us out. I believe in God. I believe in America. I believe in Iowa. I believe in you. I'm asking you to believe in me. I'm asking you to think through this moment we're in. Would you pray? Would you ask God, is now the time for a different leadership in the White House? If you feel like it is, connect to this message. If you want to see a grassroots candidate rise up, here's what our plan is. They asked me, what's the pathway to success? Top 3 or 4 in Iowa. We're going straight through Iowa and New Hampshire. I'm going to New Hampshire next week. We are going to ride this wave. We're moving up. And let's let Iowa tell us who are the candidates instead of letting the RNC or any other organization figure it out. Let's let Iowa decide. And that's why I'm in this race. If you feel that, here's what I'm asking. I'm asking you to lean in, put a sign in your yard, pray for us, give a little bit, join us, text 10 people, say, even if you're for somebody else, check this guy out. I met him, he's a decent guy. Share the word. And if you feel led, caucus for us. We have things on here for email addresses. You can sign up for that. And it's not a commitment. It's just saying, hey, I want to stay in touch. I know I got 2 months to convince you anyway. Coming for you, Robert. This is the day we're in. This is the day we're in. We need God, and we need the leadership that He's calling. And the Lord assured me of this, that He's in charge of this next election. And I'm good with that. God bless you guys.